There are increasing number of cases involving illegal migrants in Poland. Last Friday evening, a group of 10 Somalis disturbed the peace of Szczecin residents. Ultimately, the migrants were released. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated case. These are the effects of the Migration Pact, which, according to Polish Prime Minister Tusk, Poland was supposed to benefit from. Friday evening on Mickiewicz Street in Szczecin, a group of 10 migrants was behaving in a loud and suspicious manner. Concerned residents reported the incident to the police and local politicians. There is a group of men here who have clearly come from Africa. There are police officers checking their IDs. These people have some papers from who knows where. They can't even speak any English. Excuse me, do you speak English? Do you speak English? What are you doing here? Ah, you are from Somalia. There is a group of men here who have clearly come from Africa. There are police officers checking their IDs. These people have some papers from who knows where. They can't even speak any English. Excuse me, do you speak English? Do you speak English? What are you doing here? Ah, you are from Somalia. How did these men end up in Szczecin? That is not known for certain. However, there are many indications that they came to us from Germany, like many illegal migrants in the past. Let us remember that people from Somalia cannot be deported to Somalia because at the moment there are such regulations. Who are these people? Are they a threat to society? Thank you, Mr. Donald. The migrants ended up in a convent run by the Calcutta sisters, but they did not stay there long. I called the sisters with an offer of help, asking if they needed any assistance. It turned out that the sisters said they didn't need any help because the migrants were no longer there. And as our journalists found out, the Somalis returned to the streets of Szczecin as if nothing had happened. We don't know who these people are. We don't know if they are criminals. Somalia is one of the most dangerous countries in the world. It has one of the highest crime rates, so they could be bandits. Unfortunately, there are many more similar cases, especially in towns located in the interior of the country. On our air, Garwolin County Administrator Iwona Kurowska reported that the border guard brought unverified migrants to intervention centers in her county. Of course, there are appropriate institutions that should deal with such people, but our facility, like many other facilities, an intervention facility, cannot refuse. The law is on the side of the border guard, which simply brings them in. So they knock on the door and say, "Good morning, we have a gentleman here for you." Yes, that's exactly how it looks. A similar situation occurred in Skierniewice. Illegal migrants were brought to the local orphanage, where after a superficial examination, they were deemed to be minors. There are 3 immigrants here, 2 from Guinea and 1 from Iran. One of them had some documents. I don't know exactly what kind, but the other 2 were illegal immigrants, transported from a guarded center. For now, these are individuals who are being sent to centers or orphanages. The crisis began in Germany in the same way. Then, there were more and more migrants until they began to be housed in social housing or hotels. Then centers were established exclusively for migrants. Today, there are so many migrants that Germany is unable to control the situation. This is a scenario that, with the government's inaction, may also repeat itself in Poland. Germany is sending illegal migrants to Poland that it cannot cope with. They invoked the Dublin agreements, claiming that they all came to Germany from Poland. A special center was even set up in Eisenhüttenstadt, right on the border with Poland. In this way, through the back door, a migration pact was introduced in Poland, which was so highly praised by Prime Minister Tusk. Poland will be a beneficiary of the Migration Pact. These benefits are clearly visible. That is why citizens are taking matters into their own hands, as exemplified by the border defense movement. We want to control almost all major crossings 24 hours a day. In view of the complete capitulation of the Polish services, we will simply document everything and immediately inform the police or border guards that groups are appearing or that they are being pushed back from the German side. Prime Minister Donald Tusk kept telling Poles that we wouldn't have to take in any illegal migrants. Unfortunately, once again, expectations collided with brutal reality.
Jest tutaj grupa panów, którzy ewidentnie przybyli z Afryki.
The proposals of Western European countries are unrealistic, and there can be no negotiations as long as the exchange of fire with Israel continues. This is the position of the Iranian authorities after yesterday's talks in Geneva. During the night, both sides carried out another series of attacks. According to Israel, one of the commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was killed in one of the air raids. Meanwhile, the presence of U.S. air forces in the region continues to increase. According to unofficial information, B-2 strategic bombers took off from the United States today. According to the American media, as many as 6 B-2 strategic bombers took off from an airbase in Missouri towards a base on the island of Guam in the Pacific. This is the route these bombers take to the Middle East via the Pacific. What's more, the planes were supposed to take off with empty fuel tanks and refuel in the air, which indicates a very heavy load. B-2 bombers are capable of carrying the heaviest American-made penetrating bomb used to destroy underground bunkers. Their target may be an Iranian nuclear base hidden dozens of meters below the surface.
Right now, Israel itself lacks the conventional capabilities to take out such a facility, so it would need to talk to the U.S. about the bunker buster. Now, the bunker buster is not a specific bomb; it's a type of bomb. What we're talking about is a specific American weapon, which is 30,000-pound precision-guided bomb, and it can only be carried by the B-2 stealth bomber right now, because that's the only plane that's configured to carry such a weapon.
Does this mean that the decision to involve American troops in the war has already been made? The White House has consistently refused to comment on the matter. The only statement made 2 days ago was that Iran has 2 weeks to surrender. Yesterday's meeting between the Iranian delegation and representatives of Western European countries in Geneva did not yield any concrete results. Despite the satisfaction of European politicians, Iran maintains that the West's expectations are unrealistic.
In order for us to come back to diplomacy, the aggression should be stopped. It is obvious I cannot go to negotiation with the United States when our people are under bombardments, under the support of the United States.
It is about assistance, not only American, but also British and unofficially French, in repelling attacks on Israel and refueling Israeli aircraft operating over Iran. Tehran called on Washington, D.C. to stop Tel Aviv from further airstrikes. The response was unequivocal.
Well, I think it's very hard to make that request right now. If somebody's winning, it's a little bit harder to do than if somebody's losing. But we're ready, willing, and able, and we've been speaking to Iran, and we'll see what happens.
Israel continues to bomb Iranian military installations, bases, and scientific facilities involved in Iran's nuclear program. During the night, we increased the damage to the nuclear facility in Isfahan and western Iran. On the screen, we see the place where uranium is reprocessed. This is the second stage after uranium enrichment in the process of developing nuclear weapons. At the beginning of the operation, we chose this place as a target, and tonight we chose it again to deepen our achievement. Israeli bombs are unable to penetrate the thick, reinforced walls of underground bunkers, and there are dozens of them throughout Iran. However, Tel Aviv declares that it will continue its attacks, even without the help of the United States, until it eliminates every facility that could potentially threaten Israel. There is hardly a day that goes by without Russian invaders providing the world with new evidence of their cruelty and brutality. These are photos from Odessa, where drones destroyed apartment buildings in the latest attack. One person was killed and several were injured. On NATO's eastern flank, no one needs to be convinced that Russia is a serious threat to peace in Europe.
While Russia is stuck in Ukraine, that possibility of direct military attack is not very high, but it may change very, very quickly.
Hence the idea is to increase defense spending to 5% at Tuesday's NATO summit in The Hague. I can announce today that the Norwegian government will announce at the NATO summit that Norway will commit to spending 5% of its GDP on defense and security. However, the further away from the Ukrainian front line, the less support there is for new defense spending. The Spanish army looks combative in these photos, But the government in Madrid wants to allocate only 2% of gross domestic product to it, instead of 5%. A letter on this matter was sent to the NATO Secretary General by the Prime Minister of the Socialist government, Pedro Sanchez. Every government has the sovereign right to decide whether it wants to make such sacrifices. We, as a sovereign ally, decide that we do not. We choose to strike a balance between the need to increase defense spending and the need to address other social, economic, and environmental challenges facing both the world and our citizens. However, this does not convince the U.S. president. Donald Trump has been pressuring European countries for almost a decade to take greater responsibility for their own security.
Well, NATO's going to have to deal with Spain. Spain's been a very low payer. They were always a very low payer. They were either good negotiators or they weren't doing the right thing. I mean, I think Spain has to pay what everybody else has to pay.
So far, out of 32 NATO members, only 8 countries do not meet the current requirement of 2% of defense spending. Spain spends the least on this, less than 1.3%.
The elections might be in few months, so the government would be more unwilling to approve this kind of defense spending in order to avoid voters' punishment.
Defense spending, but also the war in Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East are set to dominate the two-day NATO summit. Leaders from Poland, the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, among others, have confirmed their attendance. The event will be accompanied by extraordinary security measures.
So the aim is to observe everything what's happening in the area, at sea and in the air, and therefore we are operating here. And in the case of an escalation, we can conduct operations to ensure the safety of the NATO summit.
That is why the Dutch services have launched the largest security operation in their history, codenamed Orange Shield.